Is the second piece of the About Me NeoOffice assignment. All right. The first thing I recommend doing is in your All About Me folder, when you open that up, whether you have it on the desktop, wherever it might be, you should have all your images housed. You should have your NeoOffice document. You should have the rubric housed that I submitted to you on your desktop on Friday. All right. What I would do is right click and make a new folder. And once again, to right click, we can simply hit Control and click and say new folder. And we're going to call this InDesign document. All right. Basically, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be conferencing with each and every one of you to start to look at what you submitted for your About Me assignment, your NeoOffice assignment, or OpenOffice assignment, and we're going to conference and see how we can turn this into something a little more applicable in InDesign. All right. So in InDesign, it's the first piece of the Adobe CS5 software that we're going to be looking at. So directly on the bottom of your doc, you should notice all these square icons with the initials. All right. PS for Photoshop, AI for Illustrator, which we're going to be using, and InDesign. The rest of these are kind of for graphic design 2 and 3. All right, so we're working with these three primarily this semester. So we'll go ahead and click on InDesign to launch InDesign. And the first thing you'll notice when you launch InDesign is that nothing pops up right away. You don't have a blank document. All right, you do have this menu right at the beginning that you can opt to either continue showing or don't show again. Majority of you might not see anything. You might just see something that looks like this. In the Macintosh environment, we know we're in InDesign because you have the InDesign on the top left next to the apple. If you have just the Finder showing, you're not in any software. You're just on the desktop. So the difference between the two is whether you have Finder showing or InDesign. You'll also notice this little conversation bar, this little top ribbon appears, as well as our tool panel, so on and so forth. So the first thing we're going to do when in InDesign is we're going to say that we want to create a new document. All right. We know that the last document that we created was an 8.5 by 11. So we're going to say File New, and I'm going to create a document. All right. Documents can have multi-pages. Books are more applicable for if you're working on a large document with hundreds of pages or a combination of documents. And then library could be a combination of many things. So we're going to click on Document. And the first thing that InDesign asks you is, what size do you want to create these documents or this document? All right. There are some presets here with the letter and so on and so forth, but it's really up to you because you could be working on a poster, which perhaps is going to be 24 by 36, which we have the ability to go ahead and print here. All right. You could also be working on something that's maybe 18 by 24 or a whole slew of different options. So what I ask is that right in the beginning, you set up your page size. In this particular case, the width is going to be 8.5, and that's if you're holding it portrait. You're also welcome to hold this landscape. It doesn't matter. All right. So we're going to go 8.5 by 11. All right. If you wanted to go landscape, you could go 11 by 8.5. Remember, this sheet is to represent you. It's not a report that you're handing into a science teacher. All right, so let's go 8.5 times 11, just because majority of you worked with that the first time. Columns would be the number of vertical times you want to split this document. Majority of you are going with one. Maybe you want to go with 3 and have 3 different columns for your 3 different paragraphs. All right, I'll also show you another way to do that later. Gutter is the space in between the columns. So if you have 2 columns, there's going to be a 1/4 inch in between the columns that is not filled space. Margins are the space surrounding the document. Generally speaking, with most printers, a 1/4 inch to an 1/8 of an inch is a safe margin to leave because most printers cannot print all the way to the edge. All right, so I'm going to ask that we leave at least a 1/4 or an 1/8. So I'm going to type in 0.125, and you see this little link. It will link all the margins so that they're all the same size. You could change them if need be. Maybe your bottom you want to leave at 0.25. Maybe your top you want to leave at something else. But if you want them all the same, you can type in your first and hit the link. Number of pages would be if you're creating a 10-page portfolio or something, you could type in 10. We're only working on 1 page because our assignment is limited to a 1-page document. So I'll type in 1. I'm going to hit OK. Oops, I didn't want 2 columns. All right. Here's what you see with 2 columns. We'll leave it because I designed it that way. Okay. I could also go back to my preferences, I believe, and change some settings for my actual document. It's going to be document settings. There we go. Document setup. And we could change our columns somewhere in here. I'd have to find that. All right. So the cool thing about InDesign is very, very precise. It's made for advanced layout. So InDesign is made to lay out all of your work. Okay. It's not used to generate photos. It's not used per se as a typing tool. It's really how we lay out all our different entities. So whether we're laying out text, shapes, pictures, anything that we want to go ahead and lay out, we can use InDesign for. On the top is your conversational bar. It kind of tells you what you're working with, tells you where you're at on the document right in here. You can see as I move, the dimensions change. On the left here is my toolbar. It's all my tools that I'll be utilizing. I prefer to have these doubled up like this. It's just how I learned to have all my tools side by side like this. It's up to you whether you want to have a single bar like this because you like the way it tucks in here, or you can click on this little arrow to make it a double bar. Okay. Top two tools are selection tools, whether it's the selection tool or direct selection tool. As you move the way down your toolbar learning your tools, I recommend just bringing the cursor on and waiting for it to show you. It'll actually give you a call out of what the tool is. All right. For the time being, I'm going to show you how we can go ahead and place objects, text, and photos in InDesign in this first little lesson, and then we'll pick up later, probably tomorrow or the next day, and start talking about how we can do some more advanced things in InDesign. All right. So the first things first, text. How we go about placing text. In InDesign, there's the type tool, and if you hold it down, there's also a type on a path tool. So if I select the type tool, what I'm going to be doing is generating a box that's going to serve as a text box. So I simply click and drag, and that serves as a text box. Okay? So right now when I start typing, you can see I'm directly entering into that text box. If I want to change the size of the text box at any time, I can grab my selection tool, grab a corner, and adjust the size of my text box. Okay? If you ever see a little red plus sign like this, what that's telling you is your text is overset. It means that there's more text than can fit into the text box. For the time being, I'm going to stretch my text box like this, and I'm going to place it at the very top. All right. I'm going to title this my name, and I'm going to throw a large font on it. To change our font when we're in the text tool, I highlight. I have my font selection right here, which also shows you little previews of the font. All right. And your size, which is in points, which can also be directly entered. So I could say 100 points. You see how when I hit 100, it disappeared? I have my little red arrow here. It's telling me my text is overset. So I'm going to stretch my text box. All right. And I'm going to double click to select all this and tell InDesign that I want to center my text. All right. So there's my name. You'll notice that my lines are being split directly down because I set up my columns, my margins, all that stuff. This is because we're in design mode. on the bottom of my toolbar right here is design mode, normal mode, and preview mode. If I click on preview mode, it shows you how it's going to print. But you lose all your lines for guides and stuff like that. So I recommend staying in design mode or normal mode until you're able to, getting ready to print. What you're going to be doing is not retyping any of your stuff you've already typed. What you would do is jump over to your All About Me assignment, open your NeoOffice document, copy the text, and paste the text in. So your first paragraph, you're going to decide where you're placing it, get a text box placed, paste your document in. To paste it, you could do edit, copy, edit, paste, and get all of your text pasted in here. All right. Shrink your text box up to fill the size of your text. To place an image in InDesign, we need to first create a frame for that image. So we have the rectangular frame tool, the ellipse frame tool, and the polygon frame tool. All right. I'm going to, for the time being, just select the rectangle frame tool, and I'm going to draw a frame and tell InDesign that's where I want my picture to fall. You could do two things right now. You could leave this frame as a placeholder, telling you where your image is going to fall, and continue placing text. All right. Or you could decide that you want to go ahead and fill that frame right away. To fill the frame, what you're going to do is click on the frame that you generated. Tell InDesign we want to place something in there, file place. You'll also see the shortcut for file place is Command D or Apple D. So I could also just come over here and hit Command D, which will do file place. Now what it's looking for is an image. So I'm going to navigate to my About Me folder, my images, and let's first place my serious photo. All right. When I place my image, you'll see that number one, it's placed my image, but it's placed it much larger than I want to take up on my document. So I have a few options available to me. I could take my direct selection tool, grab the image, which you can see is represented as a red box here, and take the corner, hold shift, and try to scale the whole thing. Or what I could do is come up to some of my tools that are available to me up here. All right. Up here, I have the option to fit my content to frame, fit the frame to content, or center the content. I also have fill frame proportionally or fit content proportionally. If I hit fit content proportionally, it's going to go ahead and fit my content in my frame. I could say fill the frame proportionally, which is going to fill it proportionally, top and bottom. And then if I grab my direct selection tool, I can kind of move where my image is going to fall inside my frame. When I click off, that disappears, and I can go to my preview mode to see how this looks. All right. You can see that my text is a little tight to my frame, so I'm just going to drag that down a hair like so. This will also work for our other frame tools. So you see there's some other cool frame tools in here, like the ellipse frame tool. All right. Maybe your next image you want to fall into an ellipse. So I'll place my frame, Command D, and we'll place the funny photo in there. All right. Maybe on this one, actually, I would do something like this to kind of mock the image here. Oops. Make sure you have your selection tool. All right. And there we go. Okay. And we could go ahead and keep placing text. I'll show you one last tool before we close this lesson up and start again. Under our text tool, we have Type on a Path tool. Everyone loves this tool. So what we can do is generate a path with any number one of our tools here. Let's use a pencil tool. It's more interesting. So we'll use the pencil tool. All right. Generate a path, which is a line, and then I can take my type on a path tool, click on my path, make some silly text, and then what we can do, get that placed, find our line, and actually turn the weight or stroke of our line, which is right here, down to 0. You'll see that line disappears. Now I have some cool text that's wrapped around my drawing a line tool. All right, so you see right off the bat how the flavor of this document is much more interesting, much more apropos to like a graphic design environment versus a simple text document with the date. We're going to spend some time. I want you guys to start screwing with InDesign and seeing what you can come up with. What I'm going to ask is we'll actually take and place all your information that you placed in NeoOffice or OpenOffice into InDesign, start utilizing the tools, and then what we'll do is we'll conference after that point to try to make this InDesign document turn into something a little more realistic. Tomorrow, in the second half of this lesson, I'll show you some more tools that we can use in InDesign to make this happen.